Thank you for joining us, Ms. May. Earlier today, you announced the Green Party wants to end poverty by introducing a guaranteed livable income. How do you plan on doing this across the country?
Yeah, I think it's one of the very important recommendations of the inquiry on missing and murdered Indigenous women. It's been our policy for a long time. We are a wealthy, industrialized country. We actually can eliminate poverty. And the method that we propose, guaranteed livable income, the basics of it is that every Canadian gets a check, enough to live on, enough to be not in poverty. And it's not needs-based. It's based on you're a Canadian, this is your guaranteed livable income, and as you make money and pay taxes, it's paid back into the system. Now, the amount of the check and how we negotiate that is a matter for negotiation with the other levels of government, particularly obviously the provinces, territories, and municipalities, and Indigenous governments. We need to make sure that the amount of the guaranteed livable income is actually livable, and we know the cost of living varies across the country. But we would move as quickly as possible for this major improvement in social welfare and our social safety net.
Addressing the global climate emergency is your party's top priority, part of which is stopping Alberta oil sands expansion. But some Indigenous communities say oil is key to their economic well-being. If the Greens form government, how would you navigate the transition from fossil fuels while respecting Indigenous rights and sovereignty?
Yeah, well, I was very impressed with the language used in the Assembly of First Nations resolution that we're in a climate emergency. Frankly, you compare it to what we passed in Parliament, which was a good statement that we're in a climate emergency, but the Assembly of First Nations emergency resolution really made the key point, which is that in protecting Mother Earth, we cannot allow global average temperature to go above 1.5 degrees Celsius. This becomes just so essential that we have to work around it. So yes, we can work around it. We also launched in Mission Possible what we call the Just Transition Strategy to work with any current workers or communities that are dependent on the fossil fuel sector to ease that transition. Now, most fossil fuel workers are skilled workers, and their skills are needed in other sectors, including going to green and renewable energy. We're certainly hoping that within the principles of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Indigenous self-governing groups and nations can come forward with, okay, we've got renewable energy potential here. How do we get that up and running? We want to improve the electricity grid through our territory so that we make sure that when we have excess solar energy or excess wind power, we sell it into the grid to help those areas that are still struggling to get to 100% renewable. But the workers have to be listened to and their concerns taken into account, including bridging pension benefits, making sure there's jobs banks, community supports. We have a lot more details on our website, but just transition is part of equity, and you can't get climate justice without equity.
You've said a Green government would implement UNDRIP. How would you get the provinces on board to respect free, prior and informed consent around lands and resources?
Well, given that this is in the Constitution of Canada, that Section 35 says we respect Indigenous territories and rights, we have to go back, and this is a very big question. First of all, we have to make sure the federal government respects UNDRIP. We have to make sure that people at all levels of decision-making within governments understand that free, prior, and informed consent doesn't translate to we're going ahead with this project and we'll consult with you till you agree. That is a violation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. So we need to make sure that all levels of government, provincial governments, not just government but private sector, understand the concept that Indigenous territories, and we're all on Indigenous territory wherever we are in Canada, we are on lands that do not belong to us other than the fact that we stole them. So it's important that we approach this with respect on a nation-to-nation basis. And provinces that don't get it, well, there are some provincial governments that don't understand we're in a climate emergency either. We have to work respectfully with everyone and try to bring everyone on board.